what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. No, I haven't been posting up as much as I normally do. It's not that I haven't been working on the car, I just haven't been posting videos. I just guess I've just been lazy when it comes to editing. But anyway, today we're going to try to clean up the engine harness, try to make it not look so bulky and just clean up the way it's routed in the engine bay. So let's get started. So here's the GSR harness all laid out. I know what 90% of these plugs go to. Like I know these are going to go to the throttle body. These are to the thermostat housing. This is going to be the distributor plug. This is going to be the stuff right on the side of the head, a VTEC solenoid, reverse switch, starter. This is for the O2 sensor. The ones that I'm not 100% sure about are these and these, because this is going to go to the little one wire on the back of the block. This is the alternator. This is for the fuel. So I'm not 100% sure what these are. One of these two, because these both have round plugs. That one and that one. You got this one and this one. One of these is going to go to the idle air control valve, and one's going to go to the temperature sensor on the intake manifold. So I gotta do a little bit of research and see which one of these two bundles it is. But in the meantime, I was telling you I want to move the harness, this driver's side plug that's on the shock tower, over to this side. So I'm going to start deluming this and see if I can just get these wires to go over to this side without cutting or splicing anything. So this is how the harness looks right now. It's looking pretty good for me bringing this over to this side, because some of these plugs aren't going to be used. But if you look at them, most of them branch off, so I might be able just to split these looms. But before I do any of that, I need to identify what every single wire goes to. I showed you before I took off the main wire loom just from connector all the way down to connector, and I left all the intersections kind of hooked up. So as I'm looking at this, I'm tucking a fuse box under the dash, so I don't think this alternator wire that goes to the fuse box that's normally under the hood is going to be long enough. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to delume this, and as I go along, I'm just going to put tape to kind of hold everything together. But if you just follow the big white wire all the way over, it comes to the plugs on the passenger side. So first thing I'm going to do is remove this. So here's the alternator charge harness that goes to the fuse box. I'm just going to hang on to this because I may use it when I do the battery tuck. It may go to the starter or something like that. But it's definitely going to be loomed up. It's just not going to be a white wire hanging. But this is the alternator plug where it came out next to. And you can see some of the factory splices on the wiring harness. There's 3 of them right there. There's another one here. One right here. Here. So there's a bunch of them. So right now I'm going to go ahead and start taking off the rest of the loom. And I'm just going to put some electrical tape at the intersections to kind of keep everything in the stock location for now. But some of the stuff is going to be gone because the engine doesn't have a crank sensor. It's not going to have the vacuum line for the manifold. This is the knock sensor. I'm not 100% sure if that B20 has a knock sensor or not, but some of these wires are going to go. I'm not going to cut anything off this harness. If I do end up not using these, I'm just going to bundle them up real tight and just have the plug sticking out the harness like under the intake manifold where you won't see them, because I don't want to really cut the harness unless I absolutely have to. So I'm going to peel off the rest of this loom, tape it up, try to keep everything going in the same direction as it was from the factory, but just try to clean some of this up. This is the harness all unloomed. You can see these are the driver's side connectors. I'm just going to walk you through everything. This is the oil pressure switch. The injector wires. I left these wrapped up because I didn't want to mix up which cylinder each injector goes to. But then you have like the IABs, the knock sensor, and the crank sensor. If you notice on these, These are shielded. They wrapped them up with tape for these two. This is the knock sensor one. You can see it's also shielded. I'm pretty sure this whole bundle right here is just going to get tucked away. But then you have your alternator plug, intake air temperature, idle air control valve, and this is the emission sensor that was on top of the GSR manifold. This one's going to be the O2 sensor, speedo, fan switch, and the main ground for the thermostat. Down here I have the map and the TPS, and over here is the starter signal and then the reverse switch. Then you have these two sensors that go into the side of the head, the distributor, 2 wires for VTEC, and then the driver's side, the passenger side plugs. So it really doesn't look too complicated. Hopefully I'm able to clean everything up. But looking at this, to bring this way, like I wanted to do, I'm probably going to have to extend a couple wires because I don't know if these are going to stretch to the side. But once I get it on the car, I'll be able to figure out what can get folded and tucked up into the harness and whatnot. So next clip will probably be me test fitting this to the engine. Alright, so in the last clip I showed you that I separated the wiring loom. That was a couple days ago, so I don't exactly remember what I showed you, but I pulled all the loom off and I separated the harness how it would be stock, but just with the wires. So I'm going to show you how I've been routing this so far. I haven't cut or extended anything. So right over here is the reverse switch, and then up here I got the 2 VTEC wires. Over here I have the 2 sensors on the head. I'm not sure what one's for. The other one's for the coolant temperature. So then it comes back over here, and I have the distributor plugged in here, and then coming down I got the starter wire kind of looping underneath of the coolant hose, and then I have the ground for the harness, and then the fan switch right here. So all this will be loomed up as one piece and then have like branches coming off. So over here, this still has to get cleaned up a lot, but I have the map and the TPS over here. That's going to be coming down. That's one thing I was concerned about because the GSR manifold sits lower, so I'm glad that these fit well. Over on this side, it's a little bit more messy because it's hard to do with the intake manifold in the way. But I have the injectors 1 through 4. They're coming up in between the first runners right here. So I'm going to have all these loomed in just one piece and then have the wires coming out. So that's how that is. Right here is just the alternator plug. If you remember from the previous clip, I removed the wire that goes to the fuse box from the alternator because that's going to need to be extended because the fuse box is going to be under the dash once we get done with this. So underneath here, it's kind of a mess to see, but I have the knock sensor plug right here. This is long enough to reach, but for some reason it's not plugging in, so I'm not sure if the B21's different than the GSR, but either way I can still pull it off the old motor. Got the intake air temperature sensor. This needs to get tightened up because it's a lot of extra wire. Idle air control valve, low pressure switches down there. So basically now I'm going to unplug the injectors and pull the intake manifold off because everything that's hooked up to that is pretty clean. But the shock tower plugs that were on this side, I do have them pulled over to this side. So if you can see down in here, all the plugs that need to go to the inside are right here. So basically, I don't know if you can see, there's a big jumble of wires back here. So I want to pull off the intake manifold so I can kind of straighten all those up. So I'm going to pull that off right now and start working on trying to clean it up a little bit more. And then I'll show you my progress in a few seconds. So I have the intake manifold pulled off. I just wanted to show you what the wiring underneath of it looked like. It looks like a mess right now, but it's going to get cleaned up because like these wires are good. The fuel injector wires here and intake air temperature sensor is good. This knock sensor is what I have to look in, but this one looks round and this one looks more like a square plug. So I'm just going to run it to the other motor real quick and see what that looks like. Some of these wires aren't going to be used anymore, like the emission stuff and the crank sensor and stuff like that, because this motor doesn't have it. Then I can disable it in the Honda. So I'm just going to go through this and I'll let you know exactly how I clean this up. So you can see that the harness is a lot more compact. I know that this is masking tape. This isn't staying on there. I actually picked up this stuff called Tesla tape. So what they use on a lot of European car wiring harness like Volkswagen and Porsche. But we'll get into that later. So it's all cleaned up. There's only 3 plugs on the harness that I'm not using. There's one right here and then 2 over here. One is the crank sensor, one is the IABs, and the other one is an emission sensor that was on top of the GSR manifold. So you can see it's nice and loomed up. Everything fits nice and snug, nothing's pulled tight. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the manifold back on and just fit all the plugs again to make sure that everything fits the way that I want it to, and then that way I could take the harness up and get ready to loom it up. Alright, so it's raining outside now, so I figured it'd be a good time to loom up the harness that I have sitting out right here. So I bought some, this is 1-inch split loom. I got this off of eBay. This is 10 feet. I've got a 1/2 inch, which I have 10 feet or 25 feet of this, and then I have 1/4 inch, and this is 25 feet. I also bought the Tesla tape that I was telling you about. So this stuff is supposed to be way stronger than electrical tape. Like, it's super sticky when it sticks to itself. Like, I just folded over this edge and stuck it to itself, and I could barely pull it apart. But it's supposed to like not leave the residue like electrical tape. And through my research, I've learned that a lot of auto manufacturers use this factory, just wrap the whole loom with this. So I'm going to be using this instead of all the places where I have the painter's tape or whatever you call it. So basically I'm just going to start any random spot, let's say the Speedo, and I'm just going to take the smallest wire loom that I have, put a piece of the tape on one end, slide the loom over top of it all the way up into this junction point here, and then I'll tape it with the tape. As soon as I get done like 2 or 3 of them, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I got a couple branches done so far. Looks pretty good. So I started right here at the speed sensor. I went a little bit this way, so I'm basically doing the straight pieces in the 1/4 inch first. But like where there was 2, where it branched off like this, like a double branch. This is 1/4, this is 1/4, and this is the 1/2 over top. So once I get all these done, going all the way across, I'm gonna get the 1 inch going this way. But before that, I'll have all this done too, all the stuff that goes to the side of the head. But I just want to give you an idea of how it's looking so far. So basically what I've been doing is, like if this is the branch I'm working on here, I use a little bit of that Tesla tape, and I'll just do a piece around just the bare wire, and then I'll cut my sleeve to length, and then I'll leave a little space right before so you could see the Tesla tape, and then I'll wrap a layer of Tesla tape around the loom and the exposed Tesla tape. I don't know, it sticks really good to itself. So that's how I've been going about doing it. I'm going to keep working on it. Where I have these plugs that aren't going to be used, I'm probably just going to have those sticking out the loom. You won't see those anyway because those are going to be under the intake manifold. But I just didn't want to cut the harness up. The way the harness is right now, it's completely uncut. Alright, so here's the harness. I only used about 3 feet of the 1 inch. If I could go back, I would probably get 3/4 because this is a little bit big. So that's why it looks kind of bulky. But the one I used the most of was the 1/4 inch, which was all the little branches like this. I used about 1 roll of that Tessa tape, but I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It looks decent considering this wasn't cut, spliced, or anything. There's the sensors right here that I'm not using. This is going to be tucked behind the intake manifold, so you won't see those. So now we're just going to go and test fit it to the car. It's kind of stiff because this stuff's new, but hopefully everything works out. This is the shock tower connectors off of both sides, so hopefully I can get this to work out the way that I want to, but we'll see. If not, back to the drawing board. So I wanted to show you what the harness looked like. I did have to peel off that 1 inch because it made it the length a little bit too short, but I got everything up in this area. I mean, it's not perfect like a tucked harness, but it looks decent to me. Main ground, fan switch, these go to the throttle body, idle air control valve, and then have a couple over here for the injectors and the alternator and the temperature sensor. But basically it goes in right here. I did a 1 3/4 inch hole saw. I'll show you. Checkered Sports sells a grommet that I'm ordering. I'll post it up right here. But as soon as that comes in, I'll end up putting that right there, and that'll hold the wire, and it'll look pretty decent in my opinion. You have to remember I didn't cut the harness at all, so everything comes in right here basically, and then I'll just have to take the factory plugs, which are right here, hook those up, and then on the other side I'll show you what wires I am going to have to extend to make this work. So on this side, there's the 2 plugs that go out into the engine bay. So if you follow it up under the dash, it comes to this connector right here. So I'm going to separate this, pretty much cut this in half, and extend all these wires so it's long enough to reach over to that side. And then the budget tucked harness will look pretty decent. I'm about to put on the intake manifold and plug up the rest of the sensors right now so you can see how that looks. In the last clip, this is the little harness I told you I was going to extend. Came out to a little bit over 4 feet. It's probably a little bit longer than it has to be, but I can always tuck it up under the carpet. So right now I'm just going to take some of that Tessa tape and I'm just going to wrap the whole thing up. I just wanted to show you the wiring harness. Everything's plugged in now, so that's pretty good. I'm going to tuck most of this wire behind the carpet so you won't see any of this. So this is pretty much what it looks like with the harness all the way installed, except for the fuel injectors, and I'll show you why in a second. But map sensor, got it wrapped around this way. TPS down here, idle air control valve, you can see the temperature sensor back here. These are the fuel injectors. They're just chilling because I just messed up the fuel rail. I was putting a regulator 90-degree turn thing on there, and I snapped the bolt off. So I have to take this off and take this back to the machine shop and have them drill and helicoil this. This already happened once before because I was going to use this on that car, and I sent it in to get it Healy coiled, and I guess they were backed up, so it took a while. So I ended up buying that used AEM one that I put on that car. But I'm just gonna pay them. I think they've charged like 40 bucks to drill that out and Healy coil it. So that's why the fuel injectors aren't plugged up. Alright, so that's pretty much going to wrap up today's video. This was really a simple way how to clean up your engine bay and make it not as bulky and get it out of that factory loom. I didn't cut anything. The only thing that I did cut was the section of harness underneath the dash that went to the driver's side firewall. So if for some reason this doesn't work, I can just get that replacement piece from the junkyard and everything could go back to stock if there is a problem. But hopefully in the next video I could get the car started and we could take our first drive and stuff like that. So if you have any questions about what I did in this video, feel free to leave them down below. But until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.